It's Sunday. And Sunday means it's time for verses. So I threw out a cryptic comment, kind of late, sorry about that, and it was invasion. And given the fact we're in horror month, I thought that people might jump to the conclusion of being an alien invasion. No, this isn't Alien versus Prometheus. Trust me, it's coming soon. So get ready, Internet. AJ, I hope you're ready to take the bullets. So it has to do with a home invasion. And both of these movies definitely really hinge on a home invasion. It's The Strangers against Funny Games. So AJ, take it away.
Also, it's worth noting this is the I'm going to discuss the U.S. version.
Yes.
But regardless, it might as well be either one, the original or this one, because they're the exact same movie with a different cast.
Interesting.
Even the same shows, everything.
So it's like Death at a Funeral.
Psycho.
Okay. Well, I was going with something that jumped at me immediately, and I didn't think about Psycho, but yeah.
Haneke literally remade his own movie exactly every single way he made the other one, just with an American cast. Well, not American cast, but an English-speaking cast.
Yes.
No, Naomi Watts and Tim Roth aren't American.
No, they're definitely not.
But, okay, anyway, I guess I will start off immediately with the obviousness of I'm doing something different this time. Because normally the thing is I take movies that are as close to each other as possible, but obviously not the same movie.
True.
And while on the surface, this is the same concept in the same movie, obviously, if you're aware of Funny Games, you know that they're not the same.
No.
Because Haneke is Haneke. Funny Games is actually... Alright. I wanted to try... I like Funny Games, so I was trying to not make this video a... I'm gonna let you listen to how much I fucking hate Haneke even more than you already have.
Anybody that watches these videos should know by now how much you hate Michael Haneke.
What Haneke does in his movies is he makes statements on movie violence.
Yeah. By
making violent movies. And claiming they're statements on violence and not violent movies. Or some shit like that.
Okay. So
Funny Games, through Haneke's eyes, is not a home invasion movie. It is showing audiences the violence that they crave and basically, calling them out on it. Long story short, Funny Games was made to call out movies like The Strangers, among many, many others like it. The Strangers barely has any gore in it.
No.
There's gore there, sure, but it's not near as gruesome as any other movies I could have chosen.
True.
But Panic Room was an option, Straw Box was an option. There's all kinds of home invasion movies.
You might see those later on in the month, who knows?
But I went with The Strangers because it's probably closer than Panic Room or Straw Dogs, basically.
Okay. Because
Panic Room and Straw Dogs, there's a purpose going on for the invasions. In both of these movies, the invasions are for no reason. And I said this would have been impossible to split into categories because, there's... The couples in the movie are so different. And, one of them's like a long married couple. One of them is The setup for The Strangers is they were at, a wedding reception.
Mm-hmm. And
Scott Speedman proposed to Liv Tyler, and she said no. And this is them coming back to the cabin that he had all set up for a post she said yes celebration. And they're just awkwardly in this really romantic environment. Only they're in separate areas, of course, because she said no.
Of course.
And of course you can't compare, Peter and Paul to the masked people, because you have these teenagers with a lot of... They're very flashy roles. And the masked people don't really do anything, and they're behind masks. No, they don't do anything emotionally, and they're behind masks, obviously.
Yeah.
The only time we get a glimpse of them out of the mask is the girl at the beginning that comes to the door, that starts the whole thing. And then at the very end, when they take their masks off, but the camera is positioned enough where you still can't see their faces even after they take the masks off. So yes, while being pretty much the exact same setup, completely opposite sides of what they're coming from.
True.
Apparently, The Strangers is a true story. I don't really know, like, the beginning, there's text on the screen, and it says, like, like, this happened, and then there was bloodshed, and nobody knows what happened. So this, basically, The Strangers is this supposed true story, but basically the entire movie is the filmmakers guessing what happened.
That's always great for a true story.
Yeah, so the true events thing is just to get attention, of course. This is,
Only thing missing is John Larroquette narrating at the beginning.
I don't know who it is. It sounded like Lawrence Fishburne, but it probably wasn't. But it sounded like him. And yeah, as far as voices are concerned, Lawrence Fishburne basically is the Black John Larroquette.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, I said I didn't split this into categories, so I'm going to try to make this as non-messy as possible and just kind of discuss one then the other and decide which one is scarier and more effective.
Okay.
Alright. We'll go with funny games first. Okay, obviously, like I said, I like funny games. For the most part, obviously more so than the rest of Haneke's movies.
Oh, yeah.
But, the problem lies that I know this probably makes me sound like, I'm exactly the person Haneke's calling out when I criticize funny games this way. But I'm gonna be honest, because I don't give a fuck if Haneke's judging me.
No.
I really don't care if some French or Austrian, I don't remember what exactly he is, but I don't care what his condescending take on his audience.
Okay.
I don't know how he has such a big fan base, because all his movies do is it makes it sound. I sound like somebody that's bitter because, like, I was called out by him specifically. But what it basically is, from a neutral perspective, I would think, I don't understand why he has such a fan base, because basically, with the exception of Amour, maybe the only exception, all his movies basically exist for him to say he's smarter than his audience and he's going to teach them a thing or two or something. Yeah. That's the vibe I get from his movies, and it makes me want to just slap the fucking beard off of him. So, having said that, like I said, I know the whole point of funny games is to not give you what you're expecting. That's literally the whole point of funny games, is to take the audience's expectations of this story in any other movie and not give it to them. So much so, he literally, I'm not kidding, I'm seriously not kidding, he has Michael Pitt break the fourth wall and tell us this. As if the message was not unsubtle enough, he actually has Michael Pitt turn to the camera and say, I'm paraphrasing, I know what you're expecting, so I'm going to intentionally not give you what you're expecting.
And of course they tick off the audience by giving them a false ending later on in the movie.
The rewind?
Yes. I love that so much.
Okay, so now that I have basically said me saying this makes me the person Haneke was calling out, I'm going to go ahead and say it. Funny Games is a badass, awesome movie for an hour and 15 minutes.
Oh. How long's the runtime?
An hour 52.
Oh.
Because I suppose. Okay. Fuck, this is gonna be on fucking video, of course. I've got to give Haneke credit.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it is on video now.
Fuck, I really don't want to use this word when I talk about fucking Haneke, but the brilliant thing that he did here was he made the perfect home invasion movie. to call people out on liking movies like home invasion movies.
Yeah.
It's just, God damn him and the fucking social commentary doing in what would have been the ultimate movie he's calling out.
True.
Gotta keep my head from exploding trying to talk about this.
You almost did that with Baggage Claim last night.
Oh, God. Okay, so, and it's just this, it kind of gives me a Kubrick vibe, solely because of all the white. One of Kubrick's trademarks was one of my favorite director trademarks of any director. I love the scenes in Kubrick movies that are all white.
Yeah.
Completely off topic just for a split second. Obviously, There Will Be Blood was Paul Thomas Anderson's ode to Kubrick, more or less.
Yeah.
As a callback to that trademark, the bowling alley scene in There Will Be Blood was originally going to be completely painted white. That would have been so awesome.
Is that why the ending of Road to Perdition is the way it is? With being an all-white room? Yeah. Okay, maybe not the ending, but like the big scene in the very end of the movie.
Right.
Yes. That's an all-white room too.
I hadn't really thought about it. But yeah, anyway, there is so much white in this movie. Peter and Paul are dressed completely in white. The walls of the house are white. A lot of it takes place during the day, so like the way the sun comes in, it kind of gives everything just this nothing but white view of everything.
True.
Which, of course, let's look at the snow on the ground at the beginning of Gangs of New York. When you have an all-white area, chances are you're going to splatter blood onto it.
Yeah.
Obviously, for advertising purposes, you have to make blood black on posters and in trailers, hence the cover. But you can still pretty much tell that's blood, so we're good. Michael Pitt went into a pen factory, sort of beating everything. Anyway, but yeah, that's just... Funny Games is so frustrating, and not... Fuck you, Haneke, with, I was so trying to frustrate you. I succeeded. No, it's so frustrating that I know I'm the person being called out, and that drives me insane. I can't express that enough.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, okay. So let's go into when Funny Games shifts on us. There's a couple of moments where, let's say, Fear came to mind. There's a home invasion at the end of Fear.
Yeah.
Coincidentally enough, the original Funny Games came out the year after Fear. Go figure.
Interesting.
And there's a scene where the kid escapes out the window.
Yeah.
And, he gets in the Jeep, he runs the guy over, and he, manages to get out of the situation. They set up the same thing to happen in Funny Games. Exactly the same way.
Mm-hmm.
The kid escapes everything. He escapes. He goes to the house across the street. He finds the neighbor's rifle. And we think he's going to save the day. But Michael Pitt stalks him over to It's a really great shot where it's nighttime now. And the lights are on in the backyard. And the kid thinks he's gotten away. And he turns around. And we see Michael Pitt come out of the darkness. And the reason you can see him is because of the fucking white. Like, all you see is just the white coming out of the darkness. Coming for the kid. And of course, when the first, turning audience's expectations on its head thing, you expect the kid to get out and save the day and grab the rifle and all that. But of course, Michael Pitt grabs him and brings him back to the house. And they kill him. They shoot the kid in the head. And there's that shot, where it's on I guess we're damning the media even more. It's this long shot of, it's Peter watching a NASCAR race. So the TV's on.
Mm-hmm.
And then, we just hear the shot. Like, it's a very effective way to do it. We don't see the kid get shot. Paul says that he's hungry. So he goes into the kitchen while Peter is deciding, who they're going to kill. And we follow Paul into the kitchen, and he's just digging through the refrigerator. And we hear the gunshot. And we know it's the kid because we hear Tim Roth and Naomi Watts screaming. And we get a shot of the TV covered in blood. Damning the media. Fuck you, media. And while the scene doesn't cut, we hear the gunshot and we hear them screaming, but the camera stays on Michael Pitt making a sandwich in the kitchen.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the second time, after they kill the kid, Peter and Paul decide to just leave. I guess they just decide they're done, and they leave. Tim Roth and Naomi Watts here.
Yeah.
And so she does everything she can to try to get her phone working because planning ahead of time when Peter was over trying to get the eggs and all that, he skillfully, accidentally knocked Naomi Watts' cell phone into the filled sink. So
skillfully
So she's trying to get that to work and all that, and then finally she decides she's going to leave and go get help because she can't get the phone to work.
Okay.
And she makes it quite a bit, And we're like, okay, finally she's going to find help. But of course, the whole point is to kill the audience's expectations. So Peter and Paul come back and take her and bring her back into the house.
Yeah.
And then the movie ends, of course. We are just killing audience expectations as much as you can possibly kill them. They shoot Tim Roth in the head, and they tie up Naomi Watts and take her out onto the boat. So they've got her hands tied, her ankles tied, and they've got tape around her mouth, and they're on the boat. And they're just casually talking. And they're just, just hanging out on the boat and going out really far.
Yeah.
And then Paul says, what time is it? He's like, well, it's about 8:15. And Paul just shoves Naomi Watts into the water. And they don't even really acknowledge it. The only way they acknowledge it is Peter says, I thought you were waiting till 9. She still had an hour left. And Paul's just like, yeah, well, I was getting hungry. So then they take the boat back to shore, and that's how they kill off their main characters. Just, they push her off the boat and barely acknowledge it and leave.
Wow.
And then, of course, the ending is the neighbors, the people that they knew, their other friends, came up on the boat and talked to them for a while Paul was there. And Naomi Watts managed to keep herself silent. And this is going to come back because Paul not so subtly said, oh, where's your guys' dog? It's the house, the red house? And it's like, oh, okay. And then, So obviously, Paul knows where they live, and the movie ends with them going to the next house. Which, by the way, goes to the fact that their friends that they were meeting there, when they came to the start of the movie, Peter and Paul were with them. So clearly, Peter and Paul killed them. Then we have the Naomi Watts Tim Roth stuff, and then the movie ends with them going to the next house. I don't know what they're going to do when all these people are dead, but
it's like the Purge. They just go back to their regular lives if they can.
And I suppose it does, and they do, and he does do this interesting thing with kind of letting you know about this. The invasion comes very early.
Yeah.
The invasion comes before Peter and Paul are even there. If you want to get all fucking symbolic, it's Haneke. Of course, we're getting symbolic. But I do kind of like this, I guess. Even though it's fucking textbook symbolism.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're a very happy family that's about to get their lives disrupted. So what happens is, we start and they're playing classical music. What happens is they have this game that they play in the car, where they put in a CD and they play a classical piece, and the other has to guess, who the composer is and what the piece is called.
Of course.
And they're just driving down this peaceful little area, this little, isolated neighborhood that they're in for rich people, with their fucking boat attached, and it's this soothing classical music as they're playing this game. You got the kid in the back seat, and he's in the middle, and he's smiling and happy and all that. And they're very happy, And then suddenly I forget the name. I knew it, but I can't remember the song now. It's this very loud song that's basically just really hardcore rock and screaming. And that plays really loud as they're still peacefully driving down the street and the beginning credits are going.
Yeah, I like the credit drop. It just comes out of nowhere too.
But yeah, this is just it's just filled with fucking propaganda though. We're now going to the Bonehead by Naked City. That's the song. We'll talk about the rewind scene now. So we're sitting here. Peter and Paul are sitting across Naomi Watts and Tim Roth after the kid is dead, and the shotgun is laying on the coffee table.
Yeah.
Now, of course, that's what the comment on the front talks about, not playing fair.
Yeah.
The movie doesn't play fair, of course.
No, it really doesn't.
Because the audience, not a single thing can happen that the audience is expecting is what they're going for. So, and obviously, Peter and Paul have to win.
Well, yeah.
Because that's not the expectation the audience has. So what happens is Paul is coming up with this game where they have to decide which one between Naomi Watts and Tim Roth is going to kill the other and with which weapon. And while Paul is talking, Naomi Watts picks up the rifle and shoots and kills Peter. But instead of really reacting to this, Paul just freaks out and starts looking frantically around the room. And he's screaming, "Where's the fucking remote?" When you first see this, you have no idea what that means.
Yeah.
Paul finds the remote in the couch, I think.
Yeah, I believe so.
And he rewinds the scene we just saw back to the four of them sitting here. And he goes over the plane again. And just as Naomi Watts reaches for the shotgun, he stops her. And Peter lives.
That's brilliant.
Uh,
Was there a backlash when that movie first came out?
People fucking hate that scene. Here's the thing. Clearly, this is a no-brainer. You have to have known this from a mile away. Okay. I certainly did before I ever knew personally. I can't fucking stand Haneke. And I've been saying Funny Games is his best movie.
Exactly.
You know what that means. People who love and worship the ground Haneke walks on say Funny Games is his worst. So there's that. And there's this moment where, they're just, good God. I can see why people who love Haneke hate it, because, believe it or not, there's people that love Haneke because they think he's subtle. Not to bash Nolan or anything. I hate to break it to you, art house people, but Haneke is just as painfully not subtle as a Nolan Batman movie is.
Yeah.
With its supposed symbolism.
That's a good point.
Sorry. But that's just the way it is.
As we're alienating people by the second here.
Once again, and it goes in with the fact of Haneke's trying to tell us that we are obsessed with violence and torture. So what happens is, to beat this over the head even more, there is a particular scene that's really, it's the scene that really is supposed to drive the point home. Unlike the 20 that did before it.
Yeah.
Did I mention I like Funny Games?
A couple of times.
Okay, but anyway, finally, all this torture's going on. I think this is after they killed the kid. Or it's right before. And she's weeping. This is after they've made her strip her clothes off and pray and all that shit.
Mm.
And they make fun of her because Peter called her fat. So Paul makes her take all of her clothes off and all that. But, so finally Naomi Watts just says, "Why don't you just kill us?" And Peter says something along the lines of, "I think you're forgetting the value of entertainment," or something.
That's a great line.
Yeah, but the propaganda behind it is just so painfully obvious.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Is this Haneke trying to do what Oliver Stone did with Natural Born Killers?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Just not as flashy. Well, this is the problem, though. I could be wrong, but I don't put anything past Haneke. I just think he's a piece of shit. I'm gonna be honest, I do. If I had to guess, I think the problem I have with this is Haneke thinking he's being subtle about a point. And the fact that it's one of two things. He either thinks he's being subtle, both are wrong. Both are just shit you don't do as a director. Or writer, for that matter. Either he thinks he's being subtle, or he thinks he's teaching us about ourselves.
Oh, really?
That's the whole point of the movie, yeah.
Yeah.
That we're obsessed with violence and torture, and he's gonna show us, you know. That's what I fucking hate so much. It's the same thing with Benny's video. He thinks he's above us because what he does is, here's the thing. I think Haneke is so full of shit. I think he's just as sadistic as the rest of us. Because what he does is he makes violent movies and then criticizes us for watching violent movies. And criticizes us through his violent movies. Stating the only reason he makes these violent movies is to call us out on it. And the only reason people buy that is because that's what he says.
He's a hypocrite.
But, you know, he has this huge fan base that buys into his shit.
Oh, yeah.
So, and that's just the way it is. But the reason I really, really love Funny Games is what he's calling us out on. The first hour and 15 minutes of Funny Games is the perfect home invasion movie, and I have to give him credit for that.
Yeah, agreed.
Even if he's supposedly anti the genre. Fuck him. So, there. That would be Funny Games in a nutshell. Now, the thing about The Stranger. So basically what I'm saying is we're saying fuck you, Haneke. And we're comparing The Strangers to the first hour and 15 minutes of the Funny Games. Which is actually pretty appropriate because The Strangers is so short. The Strangers by itself is actually the length of the not pretentious stuff of Funny Games. So there's that. Like I said, this is a versus probably we're never probably gonna do anything like this again because it's two totally different things. But I'm basically saying fuck you to what Funny Games really is, and I'm seeing it for what I liked about it, which is the stuff that the movie's calling out.
That makes sense.
Okay. So, and I can say that because I'm aware of it. I'm not the oblivious person that Haneke thinks he's better than. So there's that.
It's always a good thing.
You should have seen him at the fucking round table bashing Schindler's List and Downfall for like glamorizing the carnage of World War II. And
White ribbon.
Nazis. Yeah, just fuck it. So The Strangers. I had an unfortunate thing about The Strangers. I initially loved The Strangers when it first came out.
Okay.
Because it's another one of those rare horror movies that actually does most things right and doesn't fuck up. But there are some fuck ups. We'll get to this in a minute. I spent so much time bashing Haneke, I'll bash the bad things about The Strangers too.
That's only fair.
But please keep in mind I like both of these movies. Sure. Okay. And it's not so much. I don't necessarily hate Funny Games' message. Like, there is something to be said there. But just the way Haneke does the things he is talking about is very off-putting in the worst way. And I know it's like, I don't know. It's probably, some people probably write it off as like a tough love thing. Like, he's just the really stern teacher that wants you to know you're a psychopath. Basically. But he's the one that makes these movies so fucking... You watched fucking Benny's video of the Seventh Con, and you know what I'm talking about. Time of the Wolf, too. I think that's his. So, The Strangers is a home invasion movie with Like I said, it's supposedly a true story, but like I said, I'm pretty sure they just guessed. But there's a lot of great things it does here, like the score, the music cues that I hate so much in most horror movies. The Strangers has down because the Strangers made this like horror icon's a big word, but I'll use it because I can't think of another word to put in its place. The Strangers more or less has this scene that became almost iconic in horror movies when the trailer was released. This is the DVD card, but the normal poster is this shot. It's the shot where Liv Tyler is standing in the living room.
Yeah.
And this dude in the mask is in the other room behind her, and you can see him just standing in there. There's no music cue. There's no like camera movement. There's nothing to indicate that something scary is happening. It's just one big shot that's her standing here and the guy back here, and she can't see him. And she's even moving around. That's the great thing is you would think like Scream did this a lot.
Yeah.
If the killer thinks he's going to be seen by you, he runs away and hides. But this shot continues unbroken, and Liv Tyler starts to walk around the room and like into the kitchen and stuff. The guy doesn't fucking move. He just stands there and watches her from this one spot. And of course,
makes your blood curl.
And of course, you know, she goes into the kitchen, she gets into a cabinet, and she comes back, and we don't see him leave. He's just gone. That's awesome.
It is.
And then there's this really great scene where this is like the only bloody scene until the end. The end's really not that bloody too, despite the fact of what happens. Obviously they're being invaded by these people. There's 3 of them. It's the 2 girls and the guy. The 2 girls have like actual masks. The guy just has that fucking creepy ass bag. Like I don't know where the I don't know if like, maybe I always imagine the scenario like maybe at one time they all 3 had bags and the girls were all like, this is like, you know, tired. We should get just a little bit more stylish. And the guy's like, I don't need a fucking mask. I'm just gonna keep this bratty ass bag.
Nobody brought an extra bag.
the original Jason Voorhees bag is what it is.
Yeah.
Except he didn't have a mouth hole. I don't think.
Isn't that Trick or Treat as well? Somewhat.
Kind of. It's a mask. Anyway, there's this opening in the door, and their friend has come over. Their friend has no idea what's going on. He's like fucking wasted because he also just came from the reception, and he's come out because Scott Speedman called him and told him like, you know, shit did not go well. So Scott Speedman and Liv Tyler are held up in this room, and Speedman's got the shotgun, and he's ready to kill the first person that comes through the door. And the brilliant thing this scene does is, you got the friend walking down the hallway, and you got the guy with the bag on his head behind him, and it's really creepy. Like, if we didn't have Speedman with the shotgun already building suspense in this scene, the suspense comes from, you think the friend is going to be killed from behind by the guy, because the guy's got the axe in his hand, and he's stalking up behind him. But what happens is the friend walks through the line of fire of the door, and Speedman thinks he's the guy, and shoots him in the head and kills him before the masked guy can kill him.
Yeah.
So, that's, yeah, it's got like, you know, it's got the Scream moment where, you know, you open the curtains and the mask is there. But the great thing, seriously, the best thing about The Strangers is the fact that they don't use the music cues.
Oh, I agree.
There's not, the only jumps, there's one, but I'll get there in a second. They don't use the jump scares at all, except for the jump comes from when you see the killers. It's not, you know, them popping out or a really loud music cue. Which is so great. What the problem is this movie, it doesn't have enough of that to reach great horror movie status, because it does have some issues. There is one jump scare that uses the music cue, and it's, fuck. I suppose maybe it's good in an ironic way if you want to really dig into this. But none of the jump scares come from the killers. The only music cue jump scare comes from something that's a false scare. And it's something as simple as the old as fuck horror cliche. Liv Tyler taps Scott Speedman on the back, on the shoulder. That's their big musical moment jump scare. Are you? Like I said, if you want to look at it from an ironic perspective, they use the one big jump scare on that, and when the killers actually jump out, there's no big thing. It's just the killers jumping out, and that's what's scary by itself. If you want to give it credit, you can go with that. And there's a couple of the swing thing that the Purge stole immediately. That's pretty creepy. Where she looks out the window and the masked girl is just kind of on the swing outside. I'm not sure how the Purge can get sued, but regardless, Ed Cabin in the Woods at least kind of said that's kind of what they were going for.
Yeah, definitely.
The Purge didn't really take. The Purge took all credit, more or less. Like I said, I suppose there's something to be had, and they try to make something be had in the fact that it supposedly really happened. It could, obviously. It's also been ripped off a lot. Like, as great as your next was. Your next might be a better movie than The Strangers, but it's clearly borrowing a lot.
That would have been the Versus if the movie wasn't so current and new.
Yeah. And there's one huge sin that The Strangers commits, and it sucks. Because it's at the very end. When this movie just about pulled this off flawlessly, it shit itself at the last minute with this one line. The great thing about Peter and Paul in Funny Games is they do it just because. Michael Pitt does the Joker thing that you could, like I said, this was before The Dark Knight, so you could say maybe they stole things, but obviously Tim Roth and Amy Watts want to know why. So Michael Pitt says like 3 different things that are probably all totally made up, and they're really just doing it to do it. What happens with The Strangers is it's a great scene. The sun has come up. When your killers come out in the daylight in a horror movie, I think it's like the pinnacle of when a movie reaches its scary point. Because nighttime, you're never safe. Daytime, you could go either way. Usually, you're safe. So when you see the threat in a horror movie during the day, to me, that's one of the freakiest fucking things there is.
Agreed.
So there's this scene where the scene has come up and they're all in the living room, and Liv Tyler and Speedman are tied to chairs, and the 3 masked people are just standing in front of them, staring at them.
I remember this trailers.
Yeah, yeah, they blew it in the trailer.
Completely. Completely blew it. I know that's what you're talking about now.
And so finally we have that moment. And it's great. Everybody knows this is for no reason. And that's what makes it so fucking scary. We don't really need told that. The fact that it's happening, and for the whole movie nobody has known why anything is happening, makes it scary. But they tried for one last scare and they totally shit themselves. At least for me. It probably works for a lot of people, but for me personally, it didn't need to be there at all. And it would have been a lot better if it wasn't.
Okay.
Obviously, Liv Tyler has the line. You cannot have home invasion movies without this line. Why are you doing this? The girl says, because you were home.
Mm-hmm.
I can understand why people will probably think that adds a tinge more to the scariness, but I don't think Liv Tyler needed to ask the question, but maybe, I don't know really, I haven't really thought about it, but do you think it would have been scarier if Liv Tyler, this is the end of the movie, obviously.
Okay.
Everybody knows this is the end of the movie.
Okay.
This is the last scene.
Yeah.
Would it not maybe have been a tiny bit scary? I don't know where the word's coming from, I said it twice now.
Yeah.
Just the tiniest bit scarier if Liv Tyler did finally say, why are you doing this? And she just didn't get an answer.
Would have been better. I think that first off, they blew it in the trailer because they completely ruined the line. So you're waiting for it the whole movie, and you don't know when it's coming. And then you see the scene finally start to play out, and I was like, okay, this is where it's coming. And it's like, this is going to be really hokey when she says that.
They do it a second time, too.
Yeah.
Now, we can either... It's up to our imagination. Are they just doing this to them, or do they do it a lot? Not knowing that is kind of freaky, because they could just... You could be struck once, or it could be people doing it all the time. But there's one final scene. It's a great scene until, once again, just like the other scene, it's a great scene until one line.
Yep.
Where they blow this, and they tell you whether or not it was just them, or whether they do this all the time. Still not showing their masks are off now. They look like normal people to everybody else. There's these Mormon kids selling, like, throwing flyers around. Handing flyers out. And, they pull up in the truck, but we still never see their faces. And they pull up in this truck, and we just see the way the kids look at them and respond to their faces, and that gives us enough of a clue. And it's a really great line where she says, "Can I have one of those?" Talking about the flyer, and he says, "Are you a sinner?" And she just says, "Sometimes." That's an effective line.
Yeah, completely.
But then they get in the truck and they're driving off, and they could just drive off into Enigma. But no.
Nope.
As they're driving off, we have this, it's like last minute ADR too. As they're driving off, we hear one of the girls say, "Next time it'll be easier." Damn it. And then of course you have your fucking payoff where Liv Tyler jumps up and screams. But they just needed to end on a jump scare, that's why that happened.
Wasn't there a straight to DVD sequel?
They were gonna make a sequel, and there was a script for a sequel, but it never got made.
I swore I've seen it somewhere, like straight to DVD.
Well, there's probably tons of straight to DVD boxes that look just like this, just with a 2 or a 3 or a 5 on them.
Yeah.
So the question is, what is scarier between what is scary more effective between what The Strangers does with the good things it does and what Funny Games does with what it does?
Okay.
Minus the propaganda half-hour finale. I've already said it, and I'm sure this will be shocking. The Strangers is a great horror movie by horror movie standards, because it doesn't do everything right, for sure. There are some people still do dumb things, and there's some, like, particularly the scene where I suppose it was like maybe their real sides are coming out and there's things they didn't know each other, but it just seemed tacked on and seemed fucking off. But it's when Speedman is loading the rifle, and he says something like he says he doesn't know how to use it or something, or he'd never used it before. And Liv Tyler says, "I thought you said you went hunting with your dad all the time." And he says, "No, I was just saying that." What's the fucking point of that?
Absolutely none.
The fact that his dad would hunt was a purpose for the rifle to be there, and the fact that he lied about hunting was a reason for him to not know how to use it, I guess.
We'll go with that.
Whatever. But that was really fucking lazy.
Extremely.
But yeah, most of The Strangers does things right. Particularly the not doing the jump thing too much. And if people do dumb things, they go into places unarmed, and they investigate shit they shouldn't be investigating and all that. But like I said, as much as I hate Haneke, and as much as this movie is the least subtle message movie you will ever see, outside of Reefer Madness.
Yeah.
What he did for the first half of Funny Games is this fantastic everything a home invasion movie should be. And it would have been the pinnacle home invasion movie if it wasn't pompously calling out its own genre. But because of the things The Strangers did right and the things Funny Games did right, I'd probably take Funny Games.
Is there a pinnacle in the home invasion genre yet?
Most people would probably tell you the original Straw Dogs, but I never liked Peckinpah or his version of it, so I don't know what I would say, but the consensus would probably be the original Straw Dogs. Unless there's something I'm not thinking of that's really obvious, but that's the first thing that jumped to my head. So, yeah. Like I said, they're totally different because one is one thing and one is basically trying to condemn the other. Like I said, you can't deny, even propaganda attached, you can't deny the fucking tension and the atmosphere and just the... Yeah, that's another thing. When I was talking about the daylight being scary, and I wouldn't say Funny Games is horror. I don't know. But regardless, the threat being in daylight, and a lot of Funny Games takes place during the day. So that's also really effective. So, yeah, just... Funny Games was handled better. So, yeah, overall. But they both have their great high points, and Funny Games' low points are certainly lower than The Strangers' low points, but regardless, Funny Games' highs are really fucking high. So...
We have an hour and 15 minutes of the film, or roughly an hour 20, to be safe.
Somewhere in there.
And versus the entire movie of The Strangers. That says enough right there, that just an hour and change is enough to beat an entire movie.
And like I said, you could have had Peter and Paul win without it being a propaganda movie.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah, horror villains win all the time.
The ones in The Strangers do.
Yeah, they definitely do.
Because Speedman's definitely dead because he's laying there with his eyes open. But Liv Tyler, we don't know. She would have had to have been laying there bleeding for God knows how long, so it's hard to say.
She jumps up and screams at the end, so maybe she just gets killed right afterwards, and that's the end of it.
She's like, it's like Sid Caesar at the end of Vegas Vacation. Like, you think he's dead, then he comes back one more time, and then he just fucking dies.
She did not win the money.
Alright.
Take the ticket.
So, that's pretty much that. That's our first. We'll say I don't know if Funny Games is considered horror or not. So I'll say scary outing.
Okay.
Out of what 4 we're doing?
We got 4. Do you know what next week is?
Not really.
All right.
I mean, there's a few, we know what they are. I just haven't chosen which ones.
Cryptic Comet is coming later in the week. So continue to watch all the amazing programming here on Pop. You can get all the movie reviews. We did 3-part video that was put out on Friday, and it was everything we watched the past: Gravity, Rush, Prisoners, Don John, Runner Runner, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs Part 2, Baggage Claim, and Battle of the Year.
I think it's like a combination 2.5 hours. But
it really is combined. If you watch it all together, it's like an hour 6, 22.
No one will do, so it doesn't matter.
You never know. There's only one person who's watched them, so there you go. I just put them up a few minutes ago. And like I said, next week's Versus should be fun. We have the Oscar prediction video. Hopefully you guys already watched that. So if not, go back and watch it. It's awesome. AJ, any parting words?
I can't fucking believe I did one of these, and I gave the victory to a goddamn Haneke movie.
Me neither, actually.
Well, that was the last time that will ever happen, so...
We'll see.